What's up YouTube, and welcome to an update video on my 1988 Porsche 928 S4. It's actually been 2 years since I bought this car during kind of a COVID/midlife crisis panic in 2020, and thought that after 2 years into the ownership experience I'd make an update video. Had a lot of good feedback around this car over the last couple of years, just some of the project videos I've made, so I thought overall just give you kind of an update on where things are going. Some things I've done to the car I didn't actually film videos on, so there's a few other updates I want to share today too. So I figure we'll just do a quick walk around and then I'll go into some of the details here. This car actually came from Michigan prior to me buying it in Missouri, and I flew up one way and drove it back. So it's actually the longest road trip I've taken in it. It was the initial purchase, sight unseen road trip, and it did really well. So I'd say that's one of my biggest regrets over the last years. I haven't got it out on any long trips, just really been driving it a lot locally. But it's been a really good car for me. I haven't had any major issues. I've learned a ton over the last couple of years on some of the things to do to make your 928 better, and just some of the maintenance things along the way that have been done on the car. So kind of just giving you an overview overall as it sits today as far as condition. The car was really well kept prior to my ownership. I'm not like the second owner or anything. I think I'm like the fifth or sixth. It's kind of a trend I notice is that a lot of 928 owners don't tend to be very long term, and I think it could just be to, I don't know, just how unique some of the systems are on this car, and if you're not willing to do the learning on it, it can get a little frustrating maybe to be an owner. But I've done my homework and I feel really good about it as far as where I've come today and where I started especially. I'm not a stranger to 80s German car ownership. I also have a 1984 BMW E24 635 CSI, and you guys have probably seen some videos of that car as well. So kind of used what I've learned from that car from even longer term ownership to get my feet wet with this one. But definitely this car has its own foibles and technology that is very unique to the Porsche. So that said, let's go ahead and start on some of the upgrades I've done to the car itself. So very first thing I did when I bought it is I changed out the wheels. This car had the 16-inch flat, and they were even the chromed version of the wheels. They're called like the gully decals or something like that. I never cared for that style of wheel, and so this is actually a much preferred style for me. This is what's called the Cup 1 wheel, and they use this on the late model GTS cars for maybe a year or two, 93 and maybe 94 models. And then also came on some other Porsches. They interchanged with the 968, so I was able to get a set of these wheels reconditioned right as soon as I got the car. So really happy with these. They're easy to keep clean. I think they're a nice classic style, and they are staggered, so they have a nice fit with the 928. The other thing that's not so visible is I did change out the brake pads pretty quickly after I got the car, and I switched in the EBC red stuff pads. They were recommended just due to low brake dust. I would say that is not accurate at all. I find that they brake dust quite a bit, and I wouldn't be opposed to changing them out again if I found some that had good performance like these do, but also less brake dust as an after effect. Also changed out the tires when I bought the car, so these are Continental, I don't know what they are, Sport Plus Contact DWS 06s, that's what they are. I've had these on several cars and I've always been pleased with them, so thought I'd go ahead and put them on this car as well. They are an all-season, which might be overkill because this car's not going to get driven in the winter, but you know, it's nice to have a little extra rain traction as well. So other things I've done to the car, I guess we'll go ahead and start looking at some of the interior bits. Most of the work I've done has probably been in there, along with a few things under the hood that I'll show you towards the end. Really happy just with the overall appearance of this car. I think it's, you know, it was kind of a space egg when it first came out, but it's aged very, very well. You can see what really attracted me to this car, if you didn't see my initial purchase video, is that I really like the Grand Prix white exterior, but this very red interior is what drove me to this particular car. Really good condition leather. These are factory Recaro seats, believe it or not, that were made for Porsche by Recaro, and they are probably the most comfortable seats of any car I own. I really do like how they sit, and they're cushy but also supportive and really good for long trips as well as even just around town. So let's get in the car. I'll show you a few other things on the inside. And I did hit a mileage milestone over the last week. As you can see, my car is now in the Porsche world, I would say officially high mileage, at least as far as how many of the cars are judged, in that it just rolled over 70,000 miles. So as of today, I'm at 70,091 miles. Really, like I say, since I got the car, I probably only put about 4,000 to 5,000 miles on it total, so not as much as I was really initially planning when I got it. But I will say that considering it only gets about, I don't know, between 18 and 20 miles a gallon, it wasn't the best car for road trips earlier this year when gas prices were at an all-time high. So it did sit a little bit this spring just kind of due to that, but at least gas prices are starting to come back down to earth, so might be able to get it out a little bit more. Other things I've done that aren't visible as far as the gauge cluster is I've changed out some of the bulbs. The prior owner had put LEDs in the cluster, and I actually didn't really like how they looked, plus I was getting some malfunctions with them. So I just went back and changed them back to the incandescent bulbs on the inside of the cluster, and overall I really like how they look. I feel like it lights up at night just fine, so overall happy with that. This car does, of course, have pop-up headlights, which has this nice satisfying knob that you turn at the front. But obviously that's been a nice feature of the car, just kind of fun entertainment. I'd never had a car with pop-up headlights prior to this, and always heard the legend of how cool they are, so that's that. Some other stuff I've done to the car. I did change out the head unit shortly after buying it. This car actually had the factory CD player, which was made by Alpine, but the CD player itself didn't work, and so I've still got it on the bench if I ever want to go back to stock, but overall this one is doing great. This is a German Kinzel unit, and it is modern in the sense that it has Bluetooth, USB, and also still has a CD player, which, believe it or not, I still do use, and really happy with how it's performed over the last couple years. The other thing I did when wiring this up, this car has a factory amplifier, which is in this panel behind the passenger door here, and I actually disabled the factory amp. It's still in its place there, but basically this new head unit has enough power that you don't even need the factory amp. And it's actually still running to the original speakers, which overall I feel sound pretty good. They're not, you know, show quality by any means, but as far as having an 8-speaker stereo for 1988, it was pretty impressive, and overall they were pretty decent quality for their time. Other things I've done interior-wise, I did fix the clock. It was one of the other repair videos I did for YouTube, and just you can watch that if you'd like to see more about the process. But really nice, just having a nice new LCD screen in there, which gives me a nice instant view of the time, which is kind of cool. This car is an automatic, as many 928s are. No big surprise there. And then just some other things interior-wise I've done is I did change out the sunroof switch. You can see that here. I did a video on that as well, and it's a little bit more complicated than you would think, but overall, installed that. No, not too much problem with that. Figuring out how it all works. I did also install a cup holder that mounts to the passenger seat frame, and pretty happy with that, actually. It's from a company called Patina Handle, and after I bought it and made a video about it, I reached out to them and just told them that there was a little bit of an issue with having enough height for the 928 because the seat sits much lower to the floor than it does on the 911, so they kind of designed this for. And believe it or not, they actually sent me a additional extension bracket that raises the height of this off the floor and actually works much better now. So even if you've seen that video, this is an upgrade I've done since then where it actually is much better for the 928, and I believe if you order from them now, that's what they're actually shipping if you tell them you have a 928. So nice just having some engineering on the fly that helped me out with that little project. Other than that, trying to think of anything else interior wise I've done. You can see kind of the condition. Like I say, overall it has this nice red leather in it. I did some leather eke on it just to bring back, not the dye, but just the rejuvenator, just to bring back some of the softness of it, and they actually did pretty well. So overall, they still have a nice pliability to them, considering their age. I think that's pretty much everything with interior updates, so let's go back outside and I'll show you a couple other things and we'll go under the hood. So let me get back out here. I just recalled one of the other upgrades I did recently, and this is probably one of my highest recommended upgrades that you can do to a 928 S4, is I installed these rubber strips that go inside of the windshield trim and the windshield, And believe it or not, those had a massive effect on quieting down the car at highway speeds. They came stock on the 91 and up cars, but for some reason the 87 to 90 S4s and GTs and such didn't have those, but they do retrofit easily. You can buy the part for the later car and it does fit in there. So if you have a car kind of in this middle era of years and you're experiencing a lot of road noise, that's a great way to cut down on that, and I would highly recommend it. So let's go under the hood. I'll show you a couple upgrades that I've done under there and just kind of talk you through what's coming next as far as future things I want to do. So here we have the 928 5-liter V8 for the S4 model, 32 valve, kind of cool and ahead of its time, I would say, for its day. As you can see, the intake is not pretty. It's still my stock intake and valve covers, and they have oxidized as they do. But I have a plan, believe it or not. I actually sourced new valve, well, pre-owned valve covers and intake from a Canadian car that I guess just didn't have as much heat because they appear to be an original finish, but they are in much better condition. So they're kind of sitting in my parts hoard right now, waiting for me to do the full intake refresh job, which is kind of a big thing that most 928 owners want to do to their cars. So maybe a winter project for me. I'm still amassing some of the other parts that go into that, but looking forward to changing that all out and giving this a nice refresh as far as some of the rubber bits as well as the cosmetic piece and just getting the intake looking sharp again. But I haven't neglected everything under the hood. Let's talk about some things I have done. So I did do a full tune-up as far as new spark plugs, wires, and both distributor caps. And I believe one of the ones I took off were actually the factory caps and wires. I don't think anybody, and rotors, I don't think anyone had ever changed them out before. So kind of a testament to their quality that they lasted this long, but also I just felt that it was a nice, just, you know, freshening for the engine to do all that work. So had to teach myself how to do that process. It wasn't too painful, but definitely a lot of wires to route. I've never owned a V8 prior to this, so it's just that many more plugs, wires, and whatnot that you have to change along the way. So that was a good learning experience. Other things I've done is just kind of fluid refreshes and also just filters and things like that. So it's really had a nice tune-up since I've gotten the car. And then again, just really that refresh job for the intake is where I want to go next. The other thing that is on the docket probably for next year or maybe the following year is the timing belt and water pump job, something you should probably do about every 5 to 6 years on one of these. It was done shortly before I bought the car, but I just want to keep it fresh and make sure that it's done under my own ownership so I can kind of speak to when it was last changed. So that's another future project that's coming up down the way. But other than that, everything under the hood is in good nick, and like I said, the car's been perfectly reliable since I've had it, so very happy with that. We'll take a look, I guess, at the hatch as well. Just kind of show you the rear of the car. So let me get that open. All right, come back to the rear here. The S4 has this big chonky spoiler on the back, which I've always liked. Love it or hate it. Some people do. Some people like the early look. I'm a fan of the big spoiler. So here we have my cargo area, and this car actually has been pretty versatile as far as just some of the around the town shopping and Home Depot runs and things like that I've done. You can fold down the 2 rear seats and it actually gives you a nice flat deck to put larger items. You just can't do anything very tall because you don't have a lot of height to work with the sloping rear. But other than that, it's kind of a nice handy cargo bay and really come in handy for, you know, a couple unexpected purchases along the way too. Other things I might want to do in the future, I'm thinking maybe a suspension refresh. It's a little down the road. It's not like it's needing it or anything like that. It's actually still doing pretty well today. But other than that, I'm really enjoying the car. I don't see myself moving it on anytime soon. It's been a pretty satisfying owner's experience. And I will say there's a good network of owners out there that have owned these things for a very long time, or at least have figured out a lot of the tricks on them that I've referenced. So big thank you to all the owners that can kind of build a good network for you if you ever want to take the plunge into one of these. So that's really where it's at as far as an update on the car. If you have any questions or anything else you want to know that I've done, or anything else that you suggest for your own, if you have maybe a 928 yourself and it's worked well for you, feel free to drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.